Okay, welcome everybody to our TILE Network seminar in October. I'm delighted to introduce our speaker, Dr. Victoria Mileva. She is a teaching and scholarship lecturer in the Division of Psychology at the University of Stirling, where she coordinates the third-year individual differences module and teach across all levels, including postgraduate. In addition, she leads the Psychology Communities program, which promotes first-year student engagement and belongingness. As Deputy Lead Scholar of the Faculty of Natural Sciences Community of Scholars Group, she works closely with all teaching and scholarship staff within the faculty to share best practice and improve the student experience. She also serves on the Faculty of Natural Sciences AI Oversight Committee and is a founding member of the Psychology Undergraduate Program Working Group. Her talk today is about, I think, 3 different initiatives that she has implemented in her teaching. And the title of her talk is Transforming the Student Experience, Building Strong Communities, Clear Assessments, and Practical Skills. Welcome, Victoria. I'm going to unshare my screen now, and then you have the floor.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Thanks, Carolina, for the intro. Let me just share my screen. Again, I'm more used to Teams, so can you just let me know if things are looking as they should? Does everybody see the title slide to my presentation?
Yes.
Excellent.
Everything looks good.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll get started then. A lot of this might not be new to a lot of you, but these are just things that have worked really well at Stirling, or initiatives that we're rolling out and that I've had a direct part of. So I wanted to tell you a bit about them, and I'd really like some chat and discussion about what you guys think, or whether you have any ideas for other things we can do. So again, I think I was already introduced, but my name's Vicky, and yeah, I'm a lecturer at Stirling. So getting started, this is the outline. So I'll talk a bit about how we are trying to build a community through, or in the psychology division, clarifying some assessment, how we keep our assessments really clear and obvious for students, and how we can help them with their skills development and actually understanding what skills they've got. All of this under the umbrella of transforming the student experience. Yeah, because we know that the student experience is one of the most important parts of them being in higher education. So first thing we're going to talk about is the Psychology Communities program. So we know that, humans are social animals. We live in groups for the most part. We live in societies. They're structured in some way. And we have this innate sense of wanting to belong, right? So we all kind of want to belong. And a lot of people coming straight in for university, they might not feel like they belong right away. So Wonky, I don't know if everybody's aware of what Wonky is. It's a blog, but it's all about HE, higher education. And they did a survey in 2022 all about belongingness for university students. And they looked at 5,233 UK university students. I think it was across maybe 3 or 4 universities. And they asked questions, or they presented statements like, I feel like I belong at my university. 69% of the respondents said that they agree. But I think the shocking part is that it was over 30% that didn't agree, or that were not sure. And yeah, this is off the back of COVID. That makes sense in a way. But at the same time, that's not a great number, because these are probably the students that might be needing more support, more help, and maybe less likely to stay at university. So another thing they asked is, I feel connected to my university community, and here it was even lower. So only 39% agreed or strongly agreed with this. And I feel a sense of community with others on my course, and that was 55% agreed or strongly disagreed. So there's loads of room for improvement on this belongingness and putting and creation of a community. So this is where I came in. They started maybe, was it 2 years ago was the first run through of this. And what we thought, oh wait, actually, hold on, sorry. Who do you think helps build a student community? I'd really like you guys to, I can't see my mouse. Can I do that? There we go. I'm gonna start that Menti. So if you guys can use this QR code, or on the top here, there's you can go to menti.com and then use the code 69308699. Hopefully it'll work for you all. I'd like to see who you think can help build a student community in a university setting. So I'm going to give you a couple of moments to do that. Is everybody able to access the Menti?
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. I see things popping up now. So the student union, student societies, lecturers, teachers, department. All right. Everyone. Yeah. Professors, student peers, societies, everyone. Excellent. Okay. So, wow. Thank you so much. That's a lot of responses, which are all amazing. So students are the main one, followed by staff, lecturers, staff visible to students, common interest. I like all of these, sound amazing. So we kind of put our heads together and tried to think about, well, how do we help the student build a community? And again, with students being at the heart of it. So with that in mind, so keep this Menti in mind, I'm going to move on and I'm going to show you what we did. Let me just, there we go. So we created this psychology communities initiative, where we tried to put first year tutees with personal tutors. I don't know if everybody has personal tutors at their institution. So the way that it works at Stirling is that every student coming in at first year is assigned a personal tutor. That's an academic in their division or department that basically sees them through from first year through to fourth and just make sure that they're there for them. Not in a hugely counseling or pastoral way, but someone there to, just to check in with them, signpost them, basically someone they can turn to if they need to. So we wanted to pair first year students, these are the people we were trying to build this community for, with their personal tutor and with upper year student mentors. So we were thinking, right, if we pair all these guys together, and kind of ask them to do tasks together, will that be enough to create a community? So that was what we were asking ourselves. And the way that we did this, we had so we had 2 personal tutors in one room with up to about 20 of their first year tutees. So each personal tutor has about 10 of their own students who are first years, who they'll see through from first year to fourth year. If anyone's unclear on anything, please just unmute and ask, because it would be better for you to understand as we're going. So yeah, I can't really see the chat at the moment, so apologies for that. But so they had these 2 personal tutors, up to 20 first year tutees, and then they had 1 or 2 upper year student mentors that we recruited just through flyers and asking them if they wanted to be part of this initiative. Each session was about 90 minutes, and the sessions were 3 times a semester for a total of 6. So the first session was just a really introductory session. It was all about their worries, their hopes, where to go for help, and a walk with their mentors. So this is where the personal tutors removed themselves from the situation, and we just let the mentors, the upper year students, go for a walk with the first years, thinking, yeah, cool, we're creating a community. The emphasis here was really on group work. And so we really, for all of these worries, hopes, etc., we had Padlets, we had, people sitting in groups. We'd say, right, you guys are a group and you guys are a group. And then we would walk around, the personal tutors and the mentors would walk around and chat with the students. So hopefully that makes sense about the way that it was structured. Session 2 was all about time management and email etiquette. Session 3 was well-being, exam stress, and how to revise. Session 3 was towards the end of that first semester. So again, concentrating on their well-being, how to deal with exam stress, and how to revise for exams, regardless of the type. So we talked about 3 different or 4 different types of exams that they might encounter. Okay, the 4th session, this was the first one of the second semester in their first year, was about skills, the STAR method, which is a way of interviewing, and CVs. Then simple statistics. This one corresponded directly with a lab that they had to do about a week or 2 afterwards that had to do with simple statistics. So this was another way of getting into the statistics. And then session 6 was a reflection on their whole year. I mean, it sounds good, I think. So what happened? What happened after these 6 sessions? Unfortunately, things weren't so good. There were a lot of students who I think didn't find it particularly helpful, and that was shown by their feet. Or maybe they did find it helpful, but they just didn't turn up. So we had a massive attrition rate from 250 respondents to a questionnaire that I didn't design it, but I used someone else's questionnaire, York et al. In 2016. So we had 250 respondents in session 1 and only 42 respondents in session 6. So again, that's a year, almost a year later or before the academic year was out, but that's a huge drop. So this is just, basically, it's just showing you, let me see if I can make a little pointer. Okay, so this is the rating from 1 being disagree to 5 being agree. I've made the scale smaller just so that you can see the difference. The scale is from York et al. In 2016. There were 6 engagement questions, things like I'm motivated towards my studies, 6 belongingness questions like I feel home in this at home in this university, and 6 confidence or 4 confidence questions. So I expect to do well in my program. So you can see out of the 250 respondents, the white bars are that first one. You can see that they actually started off relatively high in engagement and high in, well, I mean, higher than average in belongingness and quite low in confidence. And then out of the 42 final respondents, it looked like there was almost a drop in engagement and belongingness and an increase in confidence. The only issue there is that these 42 respondents may be the ones that actually benefited the most from this program because they kept coming and they were the most interested and engaged to begin with. So it's possible that their engagement went from 3 to 3.6. What I did was this was completely anonymous, so I had no way of tracking participants from session 1 to 6. So that's, note to self, and the next time I evaluate this, to have a look at that. So what went wrong? I don't know whether it was particularly relevant to students. I think it became too big. There was a lot of, it was amazing. We were working together with the student learning services, so that's SLS, with the careers, with the well-being team, and all of them were pitching ideas. And so we were putting those in the sessions. Was it relevant to students in psychology specifically? Was this something that they wanted to know? I don't know. Did they just feel like they were being told things and they didn't necessarily need to know them? It wasn't compulsory. And we know that if something's not compulsory, people aren't going to go a lot of the time, especially first years. This may be the first taste that they've ever had of freedom, and it's not being marked on. And so we saw this massive drop off. And sometimes the student mentors, most of them, I'd say 90% of them were really great, but some of them were just not very motivated to turn up either. Or when they did, they were really quiet and they weren't engaging. And what we were hoping for was to have this engaging experience between the upper year mentors and not. And I think maybe what happened is our marketing strategy for the mentors was just not ideal. They may have just thought, hey, this is a CV enhancer more than how can we help our fellow students? So, there were some positives though. In looking at the data, it looks like the first years felt more comfortable speaking to their PTs, their personal tutors, and their mentors. So that was, above the mean of 3. Don't worry about that. But basically, it looked like they had a certain level of comfort. And that's a good thing, because a lot of the times, I don't know if anyone's had this experience as a personal tutor, but people only start reaching out to us as personal tutors when they are at a crisis point. And that's really not the time when we want them to be reaching out to us, because when we signpost them and they're in a crisis point, it's harder for them to get the stuff they need as soon as they need it. So it's good that they felt that comfort, and that meant that they could come to us earlier, hopefully. People found the CV session particularly useful, and the students appear to have increased in self-confidence. Again, that was based on that figure. I don't know whether that you can really say that, and it could have not been to do with this program, but just because they're used to the way that the university was running. So takeaways from that, we're now, well, should we make it compulsory? I don't know. There's some suggestion that there's some people that say, even first years don't really know what's good for them. Maybe make it compulsory. It'll be like high school. They have to go. They have to show up for a certain number. Our university is trying to do away with compulsory sessions, so I'm not really sure that that's the way to do it. I think co-creation with the students and figuring out what they actually want is probably one of the ways that we should go about it. And also another thing we might want to do is have this group work across the sessions. So at the time we created this, the group work was done within the session and within the session only, without this overarching, group goal across sessions. And so, for example, this year we have that where we're asking them to do a group work across 2 sessions to see whether that works better. Any questions up until that point? I hope that was relatively clear about what we've done, what we tried anyway.
Yeah, no, there are no questions in the chat at the moment.
Okay, perfect. No worries. Thank you. Right. So, oh yes, and mentor rollover. So the original idea, this was, this would have been amazing, and we're still working on it. But what would have been ideal is those first years that were part of these little tutorial groups then became the mentors for the following year, so that they knew what was coming and they kind of had, they had the experience of their first year, and then they could go and directly mentor. And it would have been the self-fulfilling, well, I don't know about self-fulfilling, but it would have been, we thought, amazing to have this continuity where the second years that were the first year tutees then became the mentors, and then they moved on to third year with those first years then moving on as mentors, and it would have just been amazing. We have not figured out how to do that yet. We're having very few mentor signups as it is. This year we have no mentors whatsoever because I tried to make it as something that they could do for credit. So as a module, as a small module, and they just, nobody took that. So unfortunately, well, every year we try new things. We'll see what happens. Okay, so that was the Psychology Communities program. Super happy to talk to anybody if they're interested in doing something like this, or if they've already done something like this and it's worked. Yeah, I'll have my email at the end, so please feel free to get in touch. But the next thing I'll talk about is the clarifying of assessments that we did, again, to try to make the student experience better. The main one I'll focus on is the AI in assessment scale. And then I'll just do a couple of practical tips. A lot of them probably are things you already know, but in case you haven't seen them, I'm really happy to share. So the first thing I wanted to ask you again is this Menti question. How much do you agree with the statements? Students know exactly what they can and can't use AI for in every assessment. So if you are a lecturer, or if you even, if you have any, if you've seen, or even if you're a student yourself, do you know, or do students know, how do I get rid of the laser pointer? Sorry. Aha. Okay. So if you could just fill that in really quickly, that would be great. Okay. So apologies for this QR code just sitting there. Right. So I think a lot of people, there's only one person who thinks students know exactly when they their students can and can't use AI. And most people are strongly disagree. And that was my experience as well in Stirling. So, I mean, again, you don't have to feel like you need to take this survey, but thanks to those who did, it just really cements what people at our uni were feeling as well. Students were worried about using it. They were confused about how to use it. They were confused whether they could even use it at all for their assessments. And the staff were unsure how to mark it. If I got something that I thought maybe had AI in it, how could I possibly prove it? There was nothing to say they couldn't, but they could. We had a policy, we still do. It was a little bit vague. And so, we thought maybe this could lead to more academic misconduct if we didn't have this clear assessment. So this is where the AI and assessment scale comes in. We're using it this year for the entire Faculty of Natural Sciences. And so basically what we did, or what I did, was I created some documentation for the students on how to use it, and for the staff on how to use it, and then all staff were asked to implement it. So I'll explain how that works. If anyone's heard of it before, apologies for the repetition, but it was created by Leon Furs and Mike Perkins and their colleagues in 2024. So it's this sort of scale where each assessment that you create can be one of these levels or multiple. They're not really, some of them aren't mutually exclusive. So either no AI, ideas and structure, AI editing, AI and human evaluation, or full AI. Don't worry about the star there. So level 1, I'll just go through the levels super quickly. Level 1 is the testing and mastery of knowledge. Again, they're practical things that aren't reliant on technology. So if you're doing a Viva, if you're doing a pen and pencil test, if you're doing oral exams, all those things that are no AI. So you wouldn't need to use AI for those. Level 2 on the scale is AI-assisted idea generation and structuring. So it just helps you create, brainstorm, structure. The final product is always yours though. So you just use it a little bit for brainstorming, and then the rest of it is your doing. Level 3, sorry, the Gen AI that I'm talking about, the AI that I'm discussing is chatbots, like Grammarly to a certain extent, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and those ones. So level 3, you write your own work, but then you put it into the chatbot at some point to refine it. And so this is a good English leveler. So it's good to use in things like conversion courses or places where loads of overseas students are coming in from, but it does create really uniform language use. And if you've ever played around with ChatGPT, the number of times it uses words that aren't very frequent in the general, I mean, at least in psychology, like leveraging and delving into things. So it's basically, it's a way of, yeah, leveling the English to a certain level that, you know, to good English, but again, it can create this uniform language. The thing about level 3 is though, that they need to submit their original work as an appendix so that we know exactly what's changed and that it's not necessarily content-based. And that comes with its own issues, like extra workload for us who are marking it. But again, this is something we can discuss after. Level 4 is AI task completion with human evaluation. So you ask the AI to create something for you or do parts of the task for you, and then you evaluate the content or the output that is created. And then you compare that to something that you would have done. So this is actually really good for critical thinking. It includes AI parts together with human evaluation. And if you ever, I don't know if anybody uses this sort of thing, but we have had some success in psychology using something like this, where a lecturer has generated something with AI and then asked students to critique it. And it's worked out really well. And then level 5, it's full AI. So this is where you just work collaboratively with the AI. You use it as a co-pilot, and you don't really know, you know, where you end and where the AI begins or vice versa. So that's full AI. So what does this look like practically for every assessment? Okay, well, this is an example of one of the assessments I'm doing for my module. It's a 30% evaluating your questionnaire. Yours probably looks different. This is something called Canvas that we use to, you know, put all of it's our virtual learning environment. But you've got your deadline, you've got your assessment type, is it group or whatever, is it compulsory, what is it? And then also we have this AI use. So here in this box, I've got this they can use level 2 and level 3 of the AI and assessment scale. They also have an infographic showing them exactly what it is, and a document which shows them examples of how that, yeah, a document that I created and an infographic that I created for students. And they all have access to this. It's on the front page of their modules, and so they can see what exactly it means to use it for structure and generation and things. Similarly, this is my third assessment. Again, the due date, summative, et cetera, but this time I'm allowing them to use full AI. So that's how everybody in our faculty now is structuring their assessments. Everybody has to have a level of AI use that they're allowed to use based on this 5 level. And then we have new cover sheets that I've also created. People are using different variations on this, but basically you would delete any levels that don't map onto whatever you're doing. So if you don't have level 4, you would just delete that bit. Each level has, I did not use it, or I did use it, and then which ones did you use and how did you use it? Just a really brief summary. And if you did use level 3, there's this caveat here. You need to either say you did use it or sorry, you didn't use it, or you did use it and you submitted your appendix. So that's again here. So it's just I hope it's a more structured way of letting students know how they can use AI in their assessments. Okay, right. So in informal feedback, it seems to be overall positive. So we haven't got any actual evaluation on this. But starting from not knowing anything about how to use it or how they're allowed to use AI for what they can use AI, to having a structure like this, both staff and students informally have said that it's a really good thing and they no longer are as worried or as freaked out. Again, there's some suggestion that there might be inequalities because some students know how to use AI, some don't. These are all things we can discuss as well. And the incredible energy that is expended every time you do a ChatGPT search as well. Really not great, but I think AI is here to stay. So if we can somehow make it easier for the students to know what we expect of them, that's better. I think we'll take a look at the academic misconduct cases in the FNS this semester, and see. I'm still working on chatting with the chief examiner to see if this is something we can do. But I'm hoping to see a drop, not a rise. I'm hoping to see a drop in academic misconduct cases, or at least some kind of plateau where, because they know exactly what they can do, they're not afraid to use it. So watch this space. There's actually already been an AIAS assessment version 2.0 that's come out just at the end of August. At the very end of August, there was a second version that's come out. So again, not going to be using it for this semester or next, but maybe next year we'll roll over to the new version of the AIAS. So other practical tips that have worked really well for me in my personal experience, I always include an FAQ for, again, this is for assessments and clarifying assessments. FAQs and discussion boards are just amazing. They don't necessarily have to be in the discussion boards. You can just post an FAQ somewhere else. But, you know, this is sort of what mine looks like. Assessment 2, general information. Where can I find information about this? Where can I do this? Where do I do this, etc. You know, data analysis. Do I stop removing items in my Chromebox Alpha? My plagiarism is quite high, etc. And actually what I do is across the years, because I haven't changed this assessment very much, I'll just copy it from last year's discussion boards, put it into this year's, tweak it a little bit, and then it's ready to go. So it works out really well, especially for those assessments that aren't changing at all. Maybe some of you do this already. I found that it's worked really well. I've had students say in their final year assessment that it's been really helpful. So I do this for each of my assessments. Another thing that's working really well for me is feedback during lectures. I have a new assessment this year that required them to do a group presentation. I got 81 responses out of a lecture of about 200 students, which maybe doesn't sound like very much, but I don't know how, and I don't know whether your students fill in their final year module review, but when they do, it usually tends to be about 30% of the class at absolute maximum, and they don't talk about each of the individual assessments and what they liked and what they didn't like. So maybe some of you are already doing feedback during lectures, but I would highly, highly recommend it, because I was able to see, you know, how people were feeling, and what I really liked was this one. So, you know, the presentation helped me build confidence. Looked like some people agreed to that. I like this specifically. I would like more opportunities to present in my degree. You can see most people don't want to, so they're like disagree or slightly disagree. However, when asked, presentations like this will not be relevant, they all disagree. So they don't want any more experience in doing this. Because they're all really nervous about it. But at the same time, they know that they're going to have to do it in the future. So I feel like as lecturers, we kind of have to strike some balance and be like, sorry, guys, you know, maybe we need to do this for your own good, because you know it's going to be important. Anyway, loads to delve into and look around for that. Another thing, and again, many of you might use this as a new-ish TNS person, my pedagogical knowledge isn't probably, I mean, it isn't as good as some people who have done education for their entire undergraduate and then postgraduate degree. And so again, this is trial and error. We found that learning agreements have been working pretty well for us. What it is you just co-create something with the class about expectations. So at the beginning of the year, in fact, we did this, excuse me, we did this in our third year induction. So with the entire third year class, which is about 215 people, and we said, right, we lecturers expect you to 1, 2, 3, 4, and all these, you know, engage in independent learning, meet assessment deadlines. So again, it just really clarifies what we expect of them. And then we asked them, we invited them to in real time, use a Padlet and tell us what they might want. And actually a student, this one in bold at the bottom, this number 7, they said that they'd like to be, you know, they want students to be attentive and respectful to the lecturers and their peers during class time. We all agreed on it as a group, and then we added it in. So it was really nice. And in a way, I feel like it might create this sense of community as well, because we did it together. So we co-created this together. The other one is what they expected lecturers to do. So again, provide clear objectives, etc. And then the one that they wanted to add was this learning materials being made available in good time. So about a week before lectures. So I think it's been working well for us. We haven't gotten any evaluation on it specifically, but it can't hurt. And I know that other places and possibly other more educational based places do learning agreements quite often. So we talked about clarifying assessment. I'll talk very briefly about the skills development that we've also been doing. I know that Glasgow's been doing some really good stuff on this. But first I wanted to ask you a quick question. Do you agree, to what level do you agree with this statement? Students know what skills they have when they graduate. Doesn't matter whether they're psychology students or not. Okay. So it looks like we have a mix, which is good. So some people think students know what skills they have when they graduate and some people don't. And I wonder whether those people that agree are maybe the ones from Glasgow, which have a really amazing, I was looking into it earlier today and yesterday about your graduate skills, especially focused on psychology. But our, basically, I'll tell you a little bit about what we found. So careers and employability have come to us in psychology and actually just in general. And our main link to careers and employability said, students don't know what skills they're getting out of this, what skills they're getting out of at the end of it. They don't know what to put on their CV. So myself and a colleague or two colleagues worked quite hard on creating this based on QAA guidelines, Stirling graduate attributes, which are available to all graduates online, the BPS guidelines for what you should be like at the end of a degree, and ChatGPT was very integral in helping us create that. We also talked to module coordinators about the skills that they actually teach. And what we did was we came up with 5 areas. So we came up with 5 categories that we want students to have skills in. And these change over the years. So we have a yearly category. The categories don't change, sorry, but what they're learning within each category will change across the years. So first category is learn your stuff, acquire your knowledge. The second one is think for yourself. So independent learning and critical thinking. The third one is do the right thing. So it's using your knowledge with integrity. And the last one is team up and spread the word. So collaborate and disseminate. So that's our 4 categories. And I'll just really briefly go through an example. So in third year, again, we did this at the third year induction, and we said, by the end of this year, this is the skills that you should have. And we do have a document with the skills separately, but we also included summaries. And for example, learning your stuff. You now have a strong understanding of human social behavior from psychological, evolutionary, developmental, biological perspective, well-versed in nervous system, et cetera, possess a solid command of research designs and design principles. You're becoming proficient in using statistical software and psychological tools, and you have developed your numerical and analytic skills. This is just, again, this is a summary of what they should know at this point. If they were to go back into the document that we created, they can see the exact statistical software. We use Jamovi a lot, the tools that they should be able to do, what kind of analytical skills. So these are all things that they can go and then delve more into. But if they were interested in putting something on their CV, they can literally just write proficient in using statistical software and psychological tools, example, et cetera. So this gives them something they can literally just pluck out and pop into a CV. So we did this for each one of the skills. So think for yourself, again, prioritizing tasks, manage time effectively, critically evaluate sources, analyzing quantitative and qualitative data, identify strengths and areas for improvement, again, the feedback, doing the right thing, because that's really important right now, and the BPS is making that even more a priority. So using your knowledge with integrity, understanding the importance of inclusion, understanding open science practices and how to use things like sex versus gender in research, and listening and responding to others with empathy, team up and spread the word. This is more about communication skills and writing styles. So being able to write for different audiences and collaborating with different groups. Yeah, and the outcomes for that is we're going to discuss this with careers and employability services. We've already moved it up into the Faculty of Natural Sciences because the biology and environmental sciences want something along these lines for theirs. So we've shared it with them. And I also would like, I will be getting some feedback on this later in the year from the students. This is the first time we've ever done this. And the first time we ever showed it to students was in the induction. So that was only a month and a half ago. The other thing that we'd like to do is, for example, where it says here, honing your communication skills, developing logical, coherent arguments and lab reports, it would be great if we could directly tie that in. So if someone, where you're supposed to be at for year 2 or year 3, if you've missed that mark, there's remedial places you can go. We can say, right, you should ask Student Learning Services for help with this, etc. So in a way, it would be good to, if they know at the end of each year what they should be doing, and which is basically at the beginning of the following year where they should be at, then that means that they're less likely to be left behind. And if we allow them, or if we have all that accessible with YouTube links, with places they can go and get the help if they're struggling with statistics or other things, then each year they can be at that level. So that was hopefully, you know, we're clarifying things, we're helping them with their skills development, we're building communities. So now we've gone through everything. And I think the last thing I need to do is just thanks so much to Carol Jasper, who's another TNS colleague of mine, who helped me, especially with designing the skills-based bit, and Steve Langton, who is the undergraduate program director. He is the one that sort of was the brainchild behind the psychology communities, and he also helped with the student or the skills bit. I really appreciate all the students for providing their feedback to us and allowing us to see what is working and what isn't. All the module coordinators for the feedback for the skills and what they actually teach their students, and all of you for listening. So hopefully that was helpful in some way or made you think about things. I would love to chat more about this at any point. I think we still have some time, which is great, so we can have a bit of a discussion. But also, please feel free to reach out on my email. I'm always excited to hear about other people's, like what you guys have been doing and what has worked and what hasn't worked. There's no point in reinventing the wheel if someone's already tried something and it hasn't really worked. And it's always better to brainstorm together. So I think that was it for me. Thanks so much. I'm gonna, yeah, okay, the screen stopped sharing. So thanks so much, everybody. And if there was any questions, I don't know if I sped through that, apologies. If something was unclear.
No, it's all good. It's good. We have a couple of minutes for questions as well. First of all, thank you very much for your talk. Lots of things there to unpack, I have to say. So many examples that I love concrete examples of things. So are there any questions from the audience? You are free. You can ask them in the chat if you like. You can raise your hand, ask them on camera or off camera, just using a microphone, absolutely up to you. I'm going to oh, Emily, there we go. Emily.
Hi, thank you very much for the talk. I wanted to ask about the behavioural, the learning agreements, because just as Carolina had said in the chat, we've been having some issues for the last couple of years. We're not alone, I think in terms of this, but I just wondered if you could maybe talk a little bit more about the learning agreement in terms of the student's behaviour rather than the expectations on the lecturer, and have you got any data in terms of has this had an impact, like yeah, basically I think I'm struggling at the moment to figure out what we're going to do that will actually try and solve this on a society-wide level. So it was just, can expand. I think that's what I'm asking.
Absolutely, no worries. Okay, so this is the first year we're trying them out, and we did it for the 4th years and the 3rd years, and I think we just have a really good cohort of students. Our 3rd years are just awesome this year, and I know that it's a cohort by cohort basis. They seem to be really collegial, and no one's really, you know, making, I don't know exactly what issues you've been having, but yeah, some issues with student behavior. I did resend it again as an announcement just to say, hey, this is a good time at reading week. I don't know if your reading week is the same as ours, but we're in the middle of our reading week right now. And I just sent it out as an announcement the other day saying, this is probably a good time to just have a think about this learning agreement. You know, what you expect of us, what we expect of you. Do you think it's been going okay? If it isn't, please talk to the academic reps. So every one of our modules has a rep or an academic rep, or at least one, maybe more. And then twice a semester, we have a faculty student, or like a student staff feedback committee, where they feedback about things about our module. You probably have something similar, but yeah. So I just said, right, if this is something that you guys, you know, please flag up anything that you think we're not hitting with the learning agreement. But generally people are doing all right. And I think because it was co-created, I actually wasn't expecting that one, which I thought was really great.
Was there a reason, was there any motivation for doing it third and fourth year and not first and second year?
Not really. It was more about how many of the module coordinators could I get to in time before the semester started, and how many things had to be talked about in the induction. So yeah, we don't have, so our TNS, we're only 2 TNS scholar or TNS people in psychology. And so it's a bit tricky to kind of quickly disseminate things across the entire academic faculty, if that makes sense. But if it's working out for us, I think we can then pitch it to the first years, because the first years are the biggest classes and they're probably the ones that are most likely to be most disruptive. So
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No worries.
Thank you. There is a question in the chat from David and then Heather. David asked, how do you deal with students who struggle with group presentations due to issues like neurodivergence?
That's a really good question. Thanks, David. So we're doing, I think, a kind of a two-pronged approach. One is that, for example, the presentations that I'm asking people to do, the one that I did in third year, for example, I told them that they didn't even have to present. First of all, it was a group presentation. If even one person in the group felt comfortable presenting, that's the person that they could send up. So as long as they figured out the group work in advance, I guess, and knew who was getting up and who wasn't, then that was up to them. So some people really were not happy to present, and that's fine. I didn't make them. I also did say you guys are allowed to use full AI. So that one, they were allowed to use full AI. And someone did actually use a text-to-speech converter. So all they did was sit at the front of the computer and just press play. And that was, yeah, so that was one way of getting around that. The other thing we're trying to do, and this is more Carol's baby. So Carol, the other person who's in the TNS, she is trying to create a rubric that doesn't necessarily penalize people who might be neurodivergent, who, let's say, don't make good eye contact, for example. That used to be one of the things that we used to have on our rubric not that many years ago. It was like, do they have good eye contact? And so we're like, let's not have that anymore. And what are ways that we can say, right, this was an engaging presentation without it necessarily being someone, doing a song and a dance, and maybe not, it was clear, but just in ways that, I don't know if I'm making this make sense, but whether you are neurodivergent or not, you should be able to get, similar grades, depending on the style that you want to present it in, if that makes sense. So that's where we're going with it. We're hoping to have soon a reworked rubric for our presentations that we'll just kind of have across the board.
That's great. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you, David. Heather.
Hi, Victoria. That was a really interesting presentation. Thank you so much. I just wanted to pick your brains a little bit about how you were thinking about designing a course, like a mentor course, and people could volunteer to do this and actually turn it into credit. And that made me think there's some discussion around about courses based on kind of employability and skill development that are being taught across college. Don't think we're quite there yet. I think there's kind of a few different iterations. So I just would really like to hear a little bit more in terms of any reflection that you've got or any insights that you've got that you would be like, actually, I think if we had done this or hadn't done that, anything you can expand on there?
Yeah, so I guess the first year that we ran it, we didn't have mentors doing very much. We would tell them, as the personal tutors, we would tell them what to do. The second year we ran it, which was last year, I really wanted them much more involved. So I said, right, you guys really, you're going to be more involved. I had like half the people sign up to be mentors, and the ones that did sign up were really quiet, even though I said you're going to have more to do. So it was a bit strange. This year, I tried to make it for credit as a final year mini module, where at the end of it, they would have to just write up possibly, you know, an idea for a session or something like that. But they would have to go to the 3 sessions per semester and do something a little bit, you know, and write a reflective log, and then also a session outline or something like that. And nobody signed up. There was nobody. I mean, there was a lot of these mini modules available, and this one was one of the experiential ones, which are usually lower subscribed as it is, but nobody signed up for it this semester. So it was a bit weird. I wasn't expecting that. I thought many people would be, you know, keen to try this, and it's easy, relatively speaking. I don't know. Next year, another go. I'd be really happy to hear if you know, how do we pitch it to mentors? How do we get it to be this self-sustainable loop where the first years want to do it? I remember in my undergrad, we always, so this was in Canada, but we had these people called Gales. They were always second years. And they would mentor on Freshers Week. We had a whole week, and they would come and they would mentor us and take us around all the places and stuff. And that's kind of what I was envisioning for this. But how they got to wanting to do that, I don't know. How are they inherently motivated to help a group of students? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's interesting times, isn't it? Even if we think about the kind of additional pressures that are perhaps on students to take on what we might class as more extracurricular stuff. But I was interested where you're like, well, actually, you get credit for this. This is actually, you know, maybe taking one thing away and replacing it with another kind of course. And even that wasn't. So, okay, definitely food for thought. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, we also had a smaller cohort this year of final years, and we had a lot of these mini modules to choose from. So it's possible that there was just too much choice, and everyone ended up with a small number of people. I don't know. We'll see. I might try it again next year and maybe try to market it a little bit more. Maybe in third year, say, hey, guess what I'm doing, etc. I just wasn't expecting nobody to sign up. So it was kind of, you know, it was a bit weird, but
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
I think we have probably a final question in the chat by Simone. In terms of students using AI for assessments, have you included training or guidance for students on how to use AI, or is there an expectation on how to use it wisely? If so, could you elaborate on how you've set up training?
Yeah, so can I just, is it okay if I reshare my screen? Because we haven't had, I don't know how it is in your universities. We are having a little bit of a budget cut at the moment. So our TA budgets are decreased, and I think there's, you know, issues. So we haven't had a chance to actually outwardly teach the students. However, I have created 2 different documents. So I'm just going to share my screen and show you what I mean. Okay, is it sharing? Yes. Okay,
Yes,
so this is my
sharing.
module.
Yes.
And then at the very bottom of my first page, I have this AI and assessment infographic. So here it's a, whoa, sorry, it's very, right. So it's level 1, what's allowed, what's not allowed, why, and some examples. So for my lab report, you can, you know, conduct experiments, whatever, all on your own, etc. Level 2, lab reports, you can use Gen AI to brainstorm, outline, etc. But write your final report on your own. So this is just a really easy to follow infographic. If they need a little bit more information, whoops, sorry. If they need more information, there's another one that's like just underneath it. So it's not the AI infographic, it's the using AI and assessments for students document that I also created, which has what are the students' do's and don'ts pages from the uni, what is Gen AI, what are examples of Gen AI, what the scale looks like, a summary, and then kind of what's allowed, what isn't, and then a little bit more of an example here of, you know, you use a Gen AI tool to brainstorm different approaches to your experiment and can use Gen AI to generate an outline. The final report, however, is completely your own work with no, etc. So it's just a little bit more in depth about what you can and can't do. And so I pointed them in this direction. This has been shared across the Faculty of Natural Sciences. And so hopefully at some point they've found it and they've seen it, and or if they haven't yet, because they haven't had to do any assessments, they will find it and will see it, and we will be flagging it up. So that's kind of the best we can do at the moment. We just don't have the resources to teach them how to use the AI. Although I did do a skills session for our master's students where I taught them how to use AI at each of the levels. But for the undergraduates, I think it's just, I think the first years are having a little workshop on it, but in my third year class, I haven't, that's not one of the things that I've done.
Okay. That's great. Thank you so much. Again, thank you for the talk, and thank you everyone for joining and the questions and so on. Really appreciate you taking out the time of the diary to join our TILE seminar, and I hope to see you at the next one as well. So goodbye.
Oh, thanks everybody. Cheers. Thanks for having me, Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. Bye.